Hi guys, welcome back to the Crochet Crow. This is part 2 of the twist headband tutorial. As I said in the last one, I had to split it up into 2 parts. So let's pick up where we left off. Okay, now I'm at my last stitch of the second row, and I wanted to show this because sometimes it can be a little bit hard to see, especially if you're a beginner. So this is what it looks like when you're down to your last stitch. As you can see, it's kind of hard to see sometimes. This is this bar that I was showing on the side of the other ones. The V is right here. It can be a little hard to see sometimes because it's just kind of, the ends are always kind of rounded and kind of just jumbled together. This is where we want to insert our hook. Sometimes it can be difficult to get your hook into the last stitch. My gosh, I keep hitting that. Sometimes it can be difficult. Are you kidding me? Okay. Sometimes it can be difficult to get your hook into the last stitch. It can be tight at the end, but you'll get there eventually. Now we're just going to make the half double crochet like we have been the whole time. And there is our second row completed of our twist headband. It's going to be the same. Chain 2, flip your project, half double crochet for the whole row. For me, it's 76 half double crochet. Whatever it is for you, you just want to do that until you get to your desired height. I'm probably going to do, see, like this one here. This one I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 rows. How to count your rows for half double crochet is you're going to look for, let's see, you're going to look for this V shape right here. Now the front and the back of a half double crochet look different. This is the back of a half double crochet, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think I am. And would this be the front or the back? Anyways, there's 2 different constructions you're going to see here. You're going to see one that's kind of like a V that is going off to the side in that direction. And then you're going to see a V that is straight. So that is how you're going to count your rows in half double crochet. Here I have 1, I have my sideways V, 2, I have my straight up and down V, 3, upside down sideways V, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So that is how you count your rows in half double crochet. There is, as I said, 2 different constructions you're going to see as we have to flip our work, so they look different in the front and the back. Sideways V, kind of upside down, and a straight up and down V. So I guess now would be a good time to show about the stitch marker. These are stitch markers. There's all different kinds you can get. These are just the basic plastic ones that look like a little lock. Super cute. You can get them in all different colors and sizes. So say I have to go, I'm just done with crochet right now, I don't really want to do this anymore. when you're done, I just finished my row. You can do it in the middle of a row, wherever you're at. Just pull up a bigger loop. This is what I do. Pull up a bigger loop. Take your hook out. Open up your stitch marker. Place it inside the loop. You can close it just like that. And now that should not come out. You can lay it down, do whatever you want with it, and it should not come out. Pull it tight. It's not going anywhere. When you're ready to get back to your project, open it back up, take it out, put your hook in, and you're ready to go. So these are super helpful. You can also mark stitches. When you get into increases, decreases, we count ahead where they need to be so you don't have to count as you're going. Tapestry crochet, I use these if I know I need 7 black. I will count out 7, put this in the 7th stitch, where my black ends, then the 7th black stitch. Then I just go to there, take that out, move on to the next color, whatever I need to do. A little more confusing if you have a whole bunch of colors, but if you have I need 25 white stitches now, it's easier to count it out beforehand, for me at least. I put that on my stitch and then, I know where I need to stop. Getting totally off topic, but yeah. So I'm going to do this. I have 2 rows. I'm going to do this 9 more times, and then I will be back. I'll show you how to fasten off and weave in your ends, and we will put it together. I will be back. Okay, I just finished my rectangle. I actually ended up only doing 10 rows total. I liked how this looked with just 10, but as I said, you can do however many you'd like. Have it really skinny, really wide. So when you're done, you are going to fasten off. But because we're going to be sewing this together, these 2 ends together, I'm going to leave a really huge tail, way bigger than you normally would when you're crocheting, because we're going to actually use the tail to sew our 2 ends together to make the twist. You want to cut your yarn when you're all done. Do not take your hook out. This can slip back out and then you have to redo some stitches, so I just leave it in, or put a stitch marker. Get your scissors. This is how much I have left after my headband. I'm going to leave a pretty sizable tail. Obviously you can never make it too big. You just have to cut it when you're done sewing, but you can definitely make it too small. So I'm just going to cut. Trying to cut my finger. Cut here. And now I will show you how to fasten this off. So I have, as you can see, a pretty long tail. We're going to need that for sewing. I'm just going to make 1 more chain like we did with our foundation chain. I'm going to chain 1. Okay. Then I'm going to pull out this tail that we've cut off with the hook still in it. So I'm just going to pull this out the whole way till it pops out, just like that. Then pull this tight, and that's your knot that is going to finish off your project. Now, if this was anything else, I would weave in this tail and weave in the beginning tail. This end we are going to weave in, but this end is used for sewing in this particular project. Look at the pretty gradient. I love this yarn. Okay, so you need to get your needle. As I said, you can use any kind of needle you'd like. Just be careful not to poke yourself if you have a sharper needle than I do. Plastic, obviously you can't hurt yourself at all with it. So I do find though that the metal ones glide through the yarn just a bit better. But like I said, it's all in preference. The crochet police will not come for you. Okay, so we're going to weave in our end where we started. So you could use a needle threader for this. I also just saw a hack. I need to stop saying but I just saw a hack the other day where someone used a stitch marker as a needle threader, which I think is genius. I never would have thought of it myself, but I'm just going to thread this through just with my fingers, because it's not that thick of yarn. So I'm just going to, way you could help yourself instead of just, trying to, slam this at it for hours. I usually hold it as far up as I possibly can. I'm going to take the opening of my needle, kind of shimmy that over it, and then you can pull that through. You want to leave a pretty good tail on the end as you're doing this, just as it sometimes can slip out. If it does though, it's no big deal. Put it back in, keep going. So I want to figure out which side I want to be facing when you're wearing the headband. It doesn't really matter. It's kind of all in preference. As you can see here, where we started, I don't know if you can see that, but where we started is kind of curved. So this kind of dips in a little bit here. So I usually make this side, the flat side, to the front facing. So just to remind myself that that's how I want that to be, I'm going to put a stitch marker, just like in a stitch like this. You have to kind of work at it a little bit right there, and then that's just going to remind me which end I want facing front when I'm sewing, so I don't really have to think about it, and which side I want to weave my ends into. In this case we only have one end, like I said, so since I want this facing front, I'm going to flip it over and weave in my end on the other side. So there's so many different ways to weave in your ends. Definitely, since this is a wearable, I would weave in the end. If I was making something like a doily or something that's not going to be worn and probably not going to be washed very often, if ever, I might just cut this off. Maybe do a double knot would suffice and cut it off. But since this is a wearable, I'm going to weave in this end just because, as I said, it might get washed. It's going to be worn and stretched. So I don't trust my knots. But you should trust your knots. Do whatever you want. So I'm going to just insert it under some of these stitches. A rule of thumb is to kind of just go in at least 2 different directions. I go in 2 different directions. I don't have any problems so far with any of my ends popping out. And what I mean by 2 different directions is I'm going this way and then going back the other way. I'm going to pop it under the V's here of these stitches. You kind of want to pull on it as you go along so you don't accidentally change the shape of your project by weaving in your ends too tightly. I probably would have left a more sizable tail. But it's okay, we can still do it. Now when you go back the other way, you're going to want to see how I put it through. This yarn is a little hard to see. How I put it through both sides of this V right here on this stitch. I want to only now go through the second one here, not this one, this second one here, because that's going to keep that there now. If I would have done it the other way, it obviously would have just came through back the way we came and we just would have been back to square one. So now I'm going to go back the way that we came. This is what I meant by 2 different directions. And I'm just going to pop it in here. As you go, you'll develop your own way to weave in your ends, most likely. Like I said, none of them are wrong. As long as it works and does what it's supposed to do, then I would keep doing it that way. Now we're going to take our scissors, and since this part's not really going to be seen, I'm not going to worry about snipping it too close to the project. I stretched it out here. Okay, now I'm going to cut probably like right here. And you can use these ends actually if you do any amigurumi or anything that needs stuffing. I have a bag of these saved up. You can use these for stuffing if you can't afford polyfill or you just don't prefer it. It's a really resourceful way to use your yarn. You never feel like you're wasting any of it. I do have a bag of polyfill because sometimes it can be hard to accumulate so many ends enough to fill if you're making a big stuffed animal. But small things like I've made some turtles, I made a ladybug, and I've used yarn ends, and it's worked perfectly fine. So, whatever is most accessible to you. Sorry, I have a drink. So now we are going to sew the 2 ends together to make this twisted effect here. This is what mine looks like on the inside of one I've already done. So when we sew it together, it's going to make this really pretty twisted effect. So whichever side you want to be on the outside needs to be in the inside when we're sewing, just like with any sewing project. Well, most sewing projects you do, you have your right side facing your right side, the wrong side is out, then you flip it inside out when you're done. So, going to get our needle back, And actually, I'll show you how to put this together first. So we need to fold these two ends together in such a way that it has the twisting effect when we're done. So we're going to fold both of these sides in half, like so. You want the end with your tail of yarn to be on the outermost side. So what I mean by that is I'm going to put them together like this. You want to sandwich them together, like so. They're kind of hugging each other. So they're hugging each other like this, and this tail is on the outside. If I put it on the inside, I will not be able to sew it correctly. You want to kind of make sure that they're even. You know, one isn't like way down here. You want to have them all kind of even. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just so that it's easier on you for sewing. Obviously, the further I sew down, I have to sew down. If I had this end in here, the more space that I lose when I sew it together. I want to lose the least amount of space as possible in my headband when I'm sewing. Once I have these together good enough, I am going to lay this down, and I'm going to put something on top of it to keep it together while I put the yarn into my needle. I'm going to use my notions pouch. Well, it's not really a pouch, but this has all my notions in it and my hooks and everything. So I'm going to lay this here so it kind of keeps it together. And then I'm just going to put the yarn through my needle like we did before. You can leave as long of the tail as you want. Okay. Now we are going to sew this together. Kind of fix it if it got kind of messed up while you were doing that. I start by just kind of going through this side here, pulling that through. Now we want to sew all of these together. So I'm going to go through here. I didn't quite meet that side yet, but that's okay. We're going to get that on the second pass. Pull through. Then I'm going to come back on this side, and I'm going to go through all 4 of my flaps here. Pull through, pull kind of tight. And I'm just going to go back and forth, sewing all of these together. Like I said, don't go too far down. The farther down you go, the more room that you lose in your headband. But you want to go down enough that you catch all 4 of the folds here. And once I have reached the end, I'm going to go back the other direction. I'm actually going to go one more time, just kind of through this end here and go through here just to be safe. Once I do that, then I'm going to go back the other direction just to be extra secure. Just doing the same thing we did when we went the first time. Sometimes it can be a little hard to get through. There we go. This is probably where a metal needle come in handy, but obviously everyone doesn't have one. So the plastic ones work just fine. I'll show you a plastic one in a second. I have a few of those as well. Okay, now I have retched the end of my second pass. You can see why the long tail is important here. Now I'm going to do something that is probably unnecessary, but sometimes I get a little bit of anxiety with this coming apart. So I'm going to go in through here, and if you've ever made anything with sewing and, you know, maybe sewn a patch on, I've done this when I've sewn a patch on to finish off when you're done. You put the yarn through, and then you want to pull this loop, but you don't want to pull it through the whole way like you did when you were sewing. Stick the needle under that loop and pull that through, and there you've made a knot. And I'm going to do this a couple times, probably 3 times. You don't feel this when you're wearing it. I tried it because I was concerned about that as well, but you do not feel this when you wear it. Pull that very tight. Then I'm going to weave this in, and all I'm going to do is I'm simply going to go through the top here, go through some of these loops here at the top, and I'm just going to pull that through the whole way, nice and tight. I do have quite a sizable tail left over, but like I said, it won't go to waste. I'll use it for stuffing at a later date. Get your scissors back and you can snip off your end. Now you have your piece sewn together. Flip it inside out so that your stitch marker is now on the outside. You gotta kind of fix them a little bit when you first, I'll take this off, when you first make it, kind of gotta get them situated correctly. But that is essentially it. And you've made a twist headband. So yeah, that is essentially the whole pattern. Super easy. Super quick, took me about, usually takes me about 40 minutes to an hour to make. If you make one like this, where you're doing stripes, it's going to take longer. You have a lot more ends to weave in. Just takes longer to switch colors and stuff, so this probably took me over an hour. Half and half is a bit quicker. You only have to change color once, so it doesn't take as long. If you'd like a tutorial on how to do the striped one, I can totally do that as well. The only difference, I'll just be showing how to change color and how to weave in all those ends. So yeah, that is the tutorial. So thank you so much for watching. If you watched this video to the end, if you watched it at all, thank you. I have wanted to make a YouTube video for a while now, and I finally did. Yeah, my next video will probably be a super easy, beginner-friendly striped scarf. And I'll show how to make tassels on a scarf, and that tutorial will have a color change tutorial, how I change color. There's so many different ways, but I can show a couple different ways. I think the way that I found is probably the easiest. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope if you never crocheted before and you wanted to try it, I wish you good luck on your crochet journey, and that you give yourself, you have patience with yourself. I didn't have very much patience with myself at first, so I got kind of frustrated when it didn't really work out, but definitely so happy that I kept going with it. So I hope you found this tutorial as some use to you. Yep, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.